Hack Cyprus podcasts.
This episode is sponsored by Capacitor Partners, a premier provider of product management and digital transformation consulting services, consistently delivering unmatched results for top organizations in both the private and public sectors. Hello and welcome to the third episode of Hack Cyprus podcast. I'm Andreas Lefkadis.
And I'm Michael Shinis.
And together we host this podcast. And we are glad to have here today with us Alexander Pirogov, who he is the product manager at JetBrains and with a lot of background in game development. Hello, Alex.
Hello, folks. Thanks for having me.
We're going to be rolling this episode in English since Alex doesn't know Greek yet. So, Alex, can you describe a bit what you do at JetBrains and your role there?
Hello, folks. Thanks for having me. Yes, sorry for not speaking in Greek. I am still in progress of trying to learn my share of a new language. Currently, I'm working at JetBrains. I am a product manager / developer at the product called Rider, which is IDEs that originally was for like .NET World, but eventually grew up into something like more game development focused. And most of the time, I work on integration with the Unreal Engine and C++ language. So due to my background, because previously I worked for a number of years for game development companies, including these titles like companies like Wargaming, Electronic Arts, Ubisoft, NetherRealm Studios, this kind of stuff.
Great. So you've been doing FIFA development. Well.
Yes. I had my share of different experience all across different departments in game development. So I've been working on the FIFA as a UI developer, World of Warships for Wargaming as a tools developer, Rainbow Six Siege as Ubisoft that NDA not allowed to say what I was doing developer. And for the NetherRealm Studios, I was working on Injustice 2 Mobile, mostly like a team lead for a team.
Okay, so we've been doing some heavy game development then.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm sure a lot of people will have questions about all of these games, which we're not going to dive into today.
Yeah. So you are here in Cyprus now. You've been relocated here.
This is correct. The JetBrains company has decided to make a strong move and close all the offices in Russia. And they've offered an option to relocate all the willing to developers to a number of offices all across Europe.
Where did they go except Cyprus?
So the main two locations where most of the employees has gone to are Cyprus, I think the most numbers, and Amsterdam. I think it's either like Amsterdam the most popular, but they really close, like 2 or 3 people difference. And other locations were Berlin and Munich, Germany, Czech Prague, to the original main office of the JetBrains, Belgrade, Serbia, and Yerevan, Armenia.
Okay, quite a few locations.
Yep.
But Limassol is the one in Cyprus, right?
So currently it's not set in stone, but the original plan was to open a big office in Limassol, and I think we've already rented a few stories of a building on Makario Street in the Limassol. But due to a number of different problems, one of them because the building is still under the construction, and a lot of the developers had decided to move to other cities for a number of reasons, like, I don't know, hey, wanted to live more quiet life or less price for a flat or for a number of reasons. So the next big location is Paphos, and we've already rented a building and have a small office there and already started. We've already hired our first employee on Cyprus in Paphos, and she's a local one. So yeah, mainly it's Paphos and a lot of plans on expanding on Limassol. And currently we are renting a number of co-working places in Limassol and Paphos. But we have developers spread all across the island, like in Peja, in Nicosia, in Larnaca, because we are extremely flexible. It's allowed to work from home currently. I mean, it wasn't that spread and allowed before, but due to the COVID and etc., everyone had to adjust and change their practices. So JetBrains has now allowed to work from home.
Yeah. And you said that the base office is in Czech, right?
I mean, the OG office.
It started there, right?
Yes. It started from a few developers from Russia who have relocated to Czech and started to work there for a Czech company. But at some point, they figure that they want something for themselves. They have a lot of great ideas. They want to expand on them. So they've opened their own IP. And yeah, that's all has started. Like few old friends who have drifted away from the company created home in the Prague in Czech and started to work there. I think I can't recall the first original project. I think it was like Renamer.
Something to do with refactoring?
Yeah. Throughout the whole history of JetBrains, all the products were targeted for developers and to improving their day-to-day lives regarding the productivity, like working with code, like refactoring code, analyzing code, writing code, everything that you want to do with the code. That's all kinds of the things that JetBrains was working on. But yeah, it all started there.
Yeah, I personally do like the IntelliJ products. Yeah. And they've helped a lot, especially when you start at something in a new language. And the first was like refactoring, and then they moved to the IntelliJ products that I've mentioned. And then can you tell us a bit about the newest and the most exciting project that is running now on JetBrains?
I mean, the most exciting project, of course, from my opinion, is Rider.
That's your product, right?
Yeah, I mean, but specifically the Rider for Unreal Engine and the C++ part, because I've spent a lot of years, and dedication and my soul and time to this product, and I really believe in it. I hope for it to succeed, and to have the Visual Studio as a competitor that's been a go-to tool for I don't know how many decades for the last. Especially in the game development world. Basically, if you are talking about the AAA console and PC games, you have like only Visual Studio, and that's all. And now we are like merging to give them alternative, something to work on. But as I mentioned, for new products, have a fleet that gone to the public open beta. Just a few days ago that you can check out right now.
What's Fleet?
Fleet has two modes from like the ground up idea is to have two modes. One is a simple one and one is extended to improve the full blown IDE one. That if you want to quickly edit some file and you don't need the analysis, refactoring, etc., and you know exactly what you are going to do, there is one option that will quickly load, quickly open, quickly edit a file. And another one, a full-blown support that you can either work on your local machine or deploy on a server and have a connection to it and leverage all the heavy lifting from your, I don't know, thin laptop to something more beefy.
The building and then
and building, etc.
And the environment around it. It's in the cloud in order not to have it installed on your laptop, let's say.
Yes.
And that way you eliminate any differences that any developer has and some different settings. And the other developer has some different environment variables, so they all can work together in the same environment.
Right. Yeah, this is one of the ideas. But when it comes to work multiple developers on the same environment or on the same idea, it is a little bit a different approach. Yeah, so Fleet is shortening the time of preparing workstation, but when you want to shorten the cognitive distance between two developers, for example, you're a new developer, you're working on some feature that you know there's an owner of a feature or a service that's a much more experienced developer that your company. There is another options like it's called Code with Me that's been working as a plugin in the multiple IDEs of JetBrains for some time already, where you basically give an URL to your team lead or more experienced colleague who just opens it, and it opens a thin client, often full-blown IDE on their site that has the same code highlighting features that they are so used to. So instead of, sharing a screen and showing people with different screen resolutions, different settings, different preferences. For example, if a person is colorblind and they basically don't like they can physically cannot work with your color scheme and cannot help you in your regards. So they are working in an environment that they are so used to and comfortable with. They're having the same K mappings, color schemes, their resolution, but they it's basically like Google Docs that they can share the screen and see where are you typing.
So then basically everyone has their exact development environment. They code in their own environment. It's just that the changes propagate to both people at the same time, right?
They are hosted on the owner of the feature, like who started the Code With Me session, as basically the server version, the backend, the indexed version of the code, and you are connecting to their version of the IDE, the backend, but using your own client with your settings that you are so used to.
The important thing to share there is the code. So the code is shareable, and then whatever changes you do it to help the initiator of that Code With Me session that you told.
So basically there's two options. Either you make some changes and you get the comments at the same time from your colleague, and there are, I think, integrated audio and video option, because you want to listen to hear and share ideas. And from that point, so if you are sharing code, you want to have some comments. So it's not that practical to write your comments currently in the code. And running multiple different applications was not an answer for an option. Basically, extremely inconvenient. Basically.
Yeah, it's cool.
So at some point, yes, we integrated audio, video, and now the full-blown conversation and session that you can work on, iterate on, and talk on. So either you type the code and someone's commenting on it, or they can navigate the code around, show you some stuff, and explain it to you. So basically, like this extreme version of pair programming.
Yeah. Okay, but you have some other tools as well, some other products regarding project management that I have seen on the website. So
another quite interesting products created by the JetBrains is the Space. It doesn't look like a regular project by JetBrains. So it's not IDE, it's not directly working with the code, but it's something to accommodate everything that goes apart from the code, but is still required by the developers. So, for example, what Space is, it has calendar, it has chats, it has the CI integration and VCS integration, code review integration. So basically, it's single entry point for everything that you need to do apart from writing a code when you are developing a product. So I don't know. And small things that you don't usually think about when you are organizing a team. So, for example, if a person wants to know how many holidays they've left, not spent in a year, they can go to the calendar and do stuff, and it will be shown. They can arrange their holidays or weekends. They can arrange a meeting or a session or conference. They can create to-do lists and still communicate with the colleagues using the calendar integrated. So, it's all in one products, except for actually writing a code. There are multiple code review integration, different tools, and there's options for projects and links to the actually see the history of the code, the VCS integration. And I don't know. And I think the integration of this paradigm of Fleet and Code With Me, where you can actually have a server and have the backend indexed code version on a server. So you can basically click on a space on a project and it will give you a link that you connect to with your thin client and you start to work on. So this kind of stuff, all in one.
So it's the expansion of the helper tool that a developer needs.
Yeah.
Not just the writing code, that you do with the IDEs, all the other stuff that the developer might do.
Basically, now you have two products, one for writing code and one for everything but not writing code.
So Space is essentially a combination of Git, CI/CD, your cloud environments, issue tracking, and so on, right?
Not exactly Git, but maybe like GitLab or GitHub or these kind of servers, and plus some more.
And it actually starts from free, which is quite nice. So for like small projects, this looks like a great start.
It's funny because I think almost, if not every single product from JetBrains has an option to use it for free. We have the students' licenses for basically everything that we have. We have open source versions. We have indie versions that are not for free, but they provide a significant discount. And I think there's like a multitude of different programs. And most of the times that I met different developers that do usually use the free version of our tools instead of the paid ones.
We all know a few.
And so you are a product manager there, right?
Right.
For the product called Rider?
Yes. But specifically for the branch of Rider responsible for Unreal Engine integration, you have our main product manager who's responsible for integrating all kind of stuff. So the web development, .NET development, game development, etc. My part is primarily on game development and Unreal Engine. And the thing is, so even though I kind of say that I am a product manager at Rider, actually the Rider itself is, and specifically Rider C++ itself, is a combination of multiple different products created by the JetBrains. So for example, the Rider itself is created by the combination of two different products. It is front-end from the IntelliJ IDE, and the backend for .NET languages and indexing stuff is the ReSharper, which is the plugin for Visual Studio. They've been brought out to two different processes, the JVM process and .NET process, and now they are working in combination using the IPC protocol to share the information. And now on top of it, when we've been adding C++ integration, we've took the ReSharper C++ support for plugin from Visual Studio, like developed by JetBrains, that has support for C++. And we took the debugger from the CLion, that is the C++ IDE. So now it's like 3 parts of different IDE/plugins/products that are combined into one single version product.
Best of all the world.
Yeah.
Okay. What makes it exciting? Why would someone go for Rider IDE and not for others like Visual Studio?
First and foremost, what the original idea was when we've been adding the support for Unreal Engine, we were trying to imagine our perfect audience, a person that will requires Rider. So instead of trying to achieve support every single C++ developer in the world, because there is a multiple different combinations, there's embedded ones, there's frameworks, scientific and stuff. And even when we go into game development, there's a multitude of different engines written in C++. Most of them proprietary, created by big companies. But what we figured that we will be targeting one single engine and trying to do it as best as possible. So apart from supporting C++ and adding different shenanigans required by the Unreal Engine, we've added support for their visual scripting language, the blueprint that is actually a binary file stored on the disk. So that is you are modifying them using the Unreal Editor, but in essence, it is connected with the code that you can inherit a blueprint from the C++, and you can extend C++ with blueprints or implement a C++ function using the blueprints. And when you are working in other tools with the C++ code and Unreal Editor, you don't have this connection and you don't have information how the references are. So if you, for example, renaming a file or renaming a class or a method, you can basically break the build for your colleagues, because now their version of binary assets that are running on top of the Unreal Engine, trying to find the already renamed classes and files, and they cannot find it. And usually what the Unreal Engine does, it will crash on the start. So we've adding information, what is the same feature that you are so used to working with code, like find references, refactoring and stuff, and usages. So you can actually find usages of the C++ code into the binary files that are integrated into the Unreal Engine. So, and you can rename them safely. So what were you doing before? For example, you would start an Unreal Editor, and while it's running, you will rename a file in the backend. You will recompile it on the fly and wait while Unreal Editor will pick up the new version. And you will see all the broken assets while Unreal Editor is still running, and we'll fix them on the fly. Because if you will shut down the Unreal Editor, it won't start again because it won't find the references broken. It was really tedious and error-prone approach. So in this regards, we are helping. We are decreasing the time that developers are spending on refactoring or crashing or changing the code, basically, and assets.
Great stuff.
And on top of it, we are the only IDE that works on all the major PC operation systems.
All the platforms, you mean?
All the platforms, basically. The Linux, macOS, and Windows.
Maybe on the cloud someday. Or not.
And maybe on the cloud. I think the Code With Me version is already in the process and should be released soonish. But I can recall the date, actually.
Okay. What's it like to build an IDE, to develop an IDE? What kind of challenges do you face every day? It's different than building a service or a website. It must be a bit more complex, let's say, because of all the platforms, I assume, all the testing that needs to be done. What's your experience on that?
I mean, first and foremost, it is fun, but in all the wrong ways. And what is logical, but the thing that you don't think about too much is when you're developing an IDE, you're constantly using a raw development or nightly builds of the IDE. So just imagine if you're writing your day-to-day code and your tool and your IDE constantly crashing and you are not working as expected. Usually you get quite irritated and annoyed that you have to work with the half-as built version of an IDE. But this is your routine when you are actually working on IDE. And when it comes to writing new features for the Rider and Unreal, you actually have at least 3 IDEs open at the same time. So to make changes for UI and frontend, you have your IntelliJ IDE open to work with the front-end code. You have Rider to work on the backend version, and you sometimes have an extra version of Rider to work on the C++ part that is integrated in the Unreal Editor. So on top of it, you are running a debug build of the Rider. So now you have 4 IDEs running at the same time when you're developing one. And on top of that, sometimes you run Unreal Editor, which is a beefy application on its own. So now you have 5 extremely beefy applications running on your desktop. So having an extremely powerful hardware is a requirement when you're working on an IDE. Yeah, but it's all fun. You have an option. It's not like a great option when you're working on the integration with game development world because there are so many NDAs and it's extremely hard to get an access on the code base of a big game. So usually when you get a bug report, it's something like something has crashed. And now the fun part starts, because they are not allowed to share the logs usually, or you need to jump through multiple hoops of actually signing an NDA to get access to the logs. But now you understand that the logs are not enough to fix a build. So now you need to add extra logs and share a nightly version of the build for your customers to get extra logs, and maybe jump through another number of hoops to get NDA signed. So it's extremely tedious. And sometimes it's fun, especially if you have an option to figure out what's the problem just by looking at a picture, like a quarter of a picture of IDE, because they cannot show you the names of the files or the name of file structure. So they specifically cut out just part of the screen to show you like a little snippet of something's going wrong. And now you have to figure out in your own what's happening actually. Yeah.
Every developer's nightmare.
Yeah, that's for sure. But yeah, how do we try to save ourselves to limit the number of problems like the one that I've described right now? That we write a huge amount of tests, basically, targeting all kind of platforms, and every time, like, what it's like to actually submit a new feature, or code to the code base of Rider. We are using Git, and you're creating, for example, a branch that you create a new feature, and now you're using this tool, our ad hoc tool, integrate into the TeamCity. That is called basically merge robot. What it will do, it will merge from the master. It will rebase your changes on top of the new version of the master and run an excessive amount of tests on all kinds of platforms using different virtual machines or actual hardware. So, for example, I think we do have Amazon services used for building. On top of that, we have a number of Raspberry Pis connected to build some versions. We have fixed PCs with the different number of Unreal Engine versions already pre-installed and configured to run the tests required by the Unreal Engine. So there's a plethora of different combinations and configurations that you running on every single merge request used by the merge robot. And yeah.
That sounds like it takes a long time to get a pull request merged just for testing. Is it?
It does. Well, yeah, basically it does, but usually it works like a combine in terms of the multiple merge robots and requests are working at the same time. So if they pick up a change, they will figure out if it's a breaking change, if it's like codes interference or something, and if it's in place, it will just restart the session. And usually you have a number of different features going on at the same time. So you basically create a merge request for the robot, and while it's still working and testing, etc., and trying to get your changes in the master, you are working on another version of or a feature.
Okay.
So what's the life cycle then? How do you develop a new feature?
So it is extremely flexible regarding the feature-wise in the JetBrains. I mean, we have the fixed number of product versions that we plan to release every single year. And it's like every 4 months we release one version. So every year we have at least like 3 versions of the IDE, plus some patches in between, plus early access program. So before making the first release, for example, that is currently will be 2022.3, so the third iteration for this year, we have this early access program where you can for free download an early version of the release build and check for itself what new features you have, etc. And we have number versions of early access preview before we actually release the first release, and then on top of that, so early access preview moves to use the next iteration. And this one has a release build, and it has only patches applied to it.
So then it's scheduled releases rather than just feature releases.
Yeah, so we actually have both. So it's scheduled releases. We have 3, and different releases have different attitude. Sometimes he figures that it's been forever since we took the tech debt too seriously. So we will say, okay, no more new features. We are planning to improve as much as possible and on performance and cost stability and stuff. So sometimes it just as a stability version, like quality release. But the funny version that we have, the last quality release, we actually released the C++ support for the Rider. So we have so many different technologies integrated in Rider, and we called it quality. It was kind of fun because we are not we should not be adding new features, but we add maybe more than in the normal release. It was in quality. Sometimes we plan new features that are scheduled so when we plan a feature, we kind of target a release, some specific release, but not always the nearest one. We sometimes figure that it will take multiple releases before the feature will be fully polished, integrated, and created for the audience. Yeah.
And actually, another question I had is how much of the roadmap is powered by the community from feedback, and how much of it comes from JetBrains itself? Because I know that there's a public access of all of the issues that are being submitted, and people share them in the forums between them so that they can keep track, for example, when a certain bug or new feature will be implemented. So how do you keep track of that, I guess?
In this regards, different teams have different approaches. Some are more strict when it comes to priorities and scheduling tasks by the product manager. Some of them are more flexible. When it comes, but I will be talking from the Rider project specifically because I am so accommodated to it. I take a lot of inspiration and a lot of features for the next roadmaps, basically from 2 main sources. One, our clients that are collaborating with us, that's actually working hand to hand and sharing their experience, the logs, and the NDA has signed. So we have access to actually big game projects that have real world problems, that not some imagine new features that we think might be useful for some developers, but actually improving and iterating on some features that are required by real people. And the second one, I do spend a lot of time with the Unreal Engine developers communities, mostly with the biggest Discord server called Unreal Slackers, and talking with the community and taking the feedback from the critics, because what we figured for every single ticket on the U-Track, it's our task system that we use to actually file a ticket. I think for every single ticket, there are probably 100 people that have experienced the same problems that have not actually went further with reporting the issue. And it's so... A lot of times I see this feedback in these communities where people, for some reason, instead of going to the support community provided by the JetBrains, they go to forums, communities, Discord servers, etc., and asking for help there. And if they don't find there, they will stop. They're not looking for further. And picking up some extra content information from there. And of course, we follow closely with the tickets. But sometimes, first 2 versions that I've talked about, talking directly with the customers and talking with the community, I can get direct feedback, what's going on. I can process it, and create a ticket by myself. and I know what will be required by the developers to get all information and make a feature from it. We, of course, take extremely seriously tickets from the UTrack created by the communities, but sometimes they take forever to actually process to make them something that we can expand on and iterate on. Sometimes the feature doesn't have a lot of information, and asking for more information from the community will basically asking, so there's a new request, a new ticket, and you ask, okay, I kind of understood you, but can you clarify something? And people go missing and not answering. So you kind of get a dead ticket for, I don't know how many years. Or sometimes and it is extremely frequent when we have a ticket that actually has multitude of upvotes in the tracking system. And people are angry saying that, and it's been, I don't know for how many years around. But the problem is that sometimes it's, even though it feels like an easy feature, it actually involves of collaboration multitude of different departments. And it's so funny when there's like issue, I don't know how many, like hundreds of upvotes, and there's this option to make a hidden comment on a ticket. And it's so from the community, it's like 5 or 6 comments on the ticket saying that we've been waiting for this forever. And when you're switching to internal version, like there's hundreds of discussions of people trying to figure out how to actually implement it. Can we or can we not? But okay, we can try to plan a research to figure out if we can even implement it. Okay, we've done it. We couldn't do it by the time, or it was so time consuming and not giving them enough value for the customers, but would spend, I don't know, a few years of implementation. Or we couldn't do it before, but maybe now we can do it, and now we need to reschedule another research. So there's so many stuff going on, and we usually do take them extremely seriously. So if you are looking at the ticket that's been, I don't know, since 2012 and has some few hundreds of upvotes, and thinking that we are ignoring, no, we've seen it many times. We've tried it, we've used it, but sometimes we actually go further and do a blog report saying that we've tried to do something. We failed, but for these reasons. And I do like to be as technical and deep as possible with the community, providing as many details like why something's happening and something goes wrong with some features, because a lot of our customers are tech savvy people. They are developers, so you can go as deep as possible with them, and you're free to explain every single detail. And sometimes it's even expected to have this nitty-bitty technical why actually you cannot implement something.
So it's just like public UTrack is basically the tip of the iceberg, but if you switch to your kind of private version, it's you actually see everything else from the waterways down.
Yeah, basically. So answering like feedback from the customers, feedback from the community, tickets, and sometimes some researchers, just to figure out, trying to, and it's like the most painful from the product manager standpoint, like trying to come up with something so extraordinary new but will actually help people, that everyone will think, damn, I haven't thought about it yet, but it is so useful. So and in many ways, we started with the Unreal Engine, where we went out of the way. So, okay, there are these things, binary files that are no code, and people usually not work with them directly. What if we can actually like skip the Unreal Engine and parse them themselves, all the files, and integrate them? And now it had the most wow effect on the GDC conference, where I was showing people the integration with the assets, and they were like, damn, like how is it possible to actually show this information inside the code, because it's so valuable. I mean, it's not that much wow effect for specific like developers who are not using the assets too much, but for some of them, for example, the UI developers, we are basically using, like most of the time they're using the combination of Unreal Editor and the C++, because they are using for UI. Mostly they're using Unreal Editor, and for the business logic and backhand, they're using C++. and they have a lot of communication going on between back and forth, and it's so easy for them to break stuff. So taking a sneak peek to actually sitting in one window and application and see all the information they required, it has less strain on the cognitive information. It's much easier to understand when you have everything prepared for you on a plate laying, then you have to go out and about into different applications and look for the connection.
Okay. I would like to know what the languages are you using, what stack are you using to build the tools that help the developers, create their stack.
So the IDE itself and a lot of JetBrains IDEs are built using, in the first place, JVM and Java, but later on, like a lot of parts, and mostly the new code is written in Kotlin, the language created by the JetBrains itself, and now it went to how it's called. Like it was originally developed by the JetBrains, but currently JetBrains doesn't own it. It's owned by a number of companies, and I think there's some Kotlin community and number of companies
maybe
that
Google
pledge to say that we will support the life of the language. So it's not on the shoulders of one single company to support the language. Now, multiple of companies say that whatever goes, we will do to support, to make sure that the language exists and we will improve. And it comes for like the front side is written in Java and Kotlin. As a backend side is written in C#. Some parts of it were written, and some of that are C++. Some time ago, it was using CLI, CPP, like this word version of the C++, but actually that is running on the managed.NET virtual machine. But now I think we finally got rid of all of this code. So it's either pure C# or pure C++, no in between.
You've mentioned Amazon Web Services before.
Yeah. I mean, the technologies, like we use multiple cloud solutions to host the Dockers for the built machines, etc. Amazon for sure. I think we've been doing some work with Azure and some our private local hosted PCs and workstations, of course. And so for Rider, for some product, it's using C# develop. Oh, okay, I've already mentioned it. And I don't know what to add on top of it. Like these are the
most important ones.
Most used and important ones.
Okay. And the team composition, do you have like a cross team of developers, like one front end, one back end, and tester maybe, and you work in features, or do you have like multiple teams in charge of one stack and maybe one team for testing?
The different teams have different compositions. So I think IntelliJ IDE is more mature in this regards. They have more like process stable and distinguish between different roles. As for Rider and Sharper, it's closer to like one person, one stack. And it comes for the UI, the backend implementation, etc. Now we are expanding on getting more UX and UI developers. So actually like spreading the development of business logic and front end and back end. So not a single developer will be in charge of the full stack in terms of actually developing it. So we still have a person, like sometimes it's still a single developer who is in charge of a feature, but it doesn't mean that he will implement from A to B everything. Some parts will be implemented for UI developers, or UI designer will create a mock-up for the UI. And sometimes some features require work by different departments, and especially the biggest pain in my ass is developing Rider, because as I mentioned, some parts are from CLI and some parts for IDE, some parts from the Rider, some parts from the Sharper. And now for some features, I need to go in multitude of different projects and talk with different teams and to make sure that they all agree on the same implementation and they can work together and they are okay with adding some feature that I require for Rider and Unreal Engine. But actually, like, it involves so many different entities to work together in collaboration to create one feature.
Makes it slow, right?
Yeah, it makes it either slow, I wouldn't say impossible, but sometimes it feels impossible because it will take so much time just to implement a new feature.
But that's why you have scheduled releases. It buys you a bit more time to develop a certain feature, right?
Yeah. But it is much less flexible than in some indie project where you can just go and create an ad hoc solution. Sometimes, you need to schedule different parts of the same feature developed by different departments. So in the end, in few releases later, it will actually create one single solution. And sometimes I have to fight with actually the Rider team because the requirements by the .NET, the ASP, or Unity world, sometimes they are not the same that are by C++ or in real world. And I have to actually fight and say that they want to add something, change something, or remove something that by statistics is not used at all by .NET developers, but the same statistics are used every day by C++ developers. What we do, we try to create an ad hoc solution regarding the UI and already open toolbars and tools for specific technology. So for example, if you're opening Unreal projects, you won't have anything related to Unity, nothing related to ASP or even for .NET, and some of the plain C++ functionality will be disabled because it's not required or frequently used by Unreal Engine developers. So depending on what exactly projects or technology you are using and opening, different view and different options will be by default enabled and shown for you. Because when it comes to IDE, it's pretty much a heavy tool that have a lot of it inside. And if you will just throw everything that you have to a new developer or a student that opens, and now you have, I don't know how many toolbars opens, how many options available after every single menu, and it's usually scare people away, and even major developers, because they open and they are overwhelmed by the options and they don't know what to choose, how to use it basically. So then every single time they have to go to another resource to figure out how to do something, we call it a failure. It means that we've done something wrong and we need to reiterate. And from time to time, we run the UX sessions with developers that have not been our customers, users before. So we have a fresh view on what's going on. Is it easy for them to find some functionalities that we consider important for these kind of developers? And we adjust UI or features on the way we interact with these people based on the UX sessions that we provide.
I want to talk a bit about the community. I know that JetBrains, when it establishes when it goes to a new place, it helps the communities as you've talked to us before. Can you let the people know what kind of initiatives JetBrains does for the community?
All right. So JetBrains spends a lot of resources. By resources, I mean money, time, and people resources to improve the quality of life, not only inside the company, but outside as well. And we try and integrate as much as possible in the education of the places that we open offices at. So, for example, on Cyprus, we have multiple of the teachers from schools and universities that have moved with us. And we've already opened lectures on advanced computer science topics in Limassol based on our the place we currently work at. I think it's Antwork Co-working. And once, I think every month, we'll be giving lectures and it's open for everyone. And I think it will be recorded and later published. But just to, I don't know, meet the company and get in touch with the developers from JetBrains, you can attend these lectures and have a talk with the people that actually work in JetBrains and hear some few topics. On top of it, we are already running classes on advanced math topics for the school students for the age 5 to 8 year, not years old, but like from 8-year class to 5-year class to 8-year classes students. And it's not limited to JetBrains, children from JetBrains employees, like anyone can attend them. But I think most of the attendances right now are Russian-speaking students. So I don't know if it will be mostly Russian or they can change to providing an English option. Maybe if we'll get enough people attending these classes, we'll have this like another one specifically in English language. And on top of it, I know for sure that we are in the process of talking with a number of universities and different schools about opening like extra lectures and classes based on advanced math, advanced computer science, and programming classes. But I don't know about whether or not we have a success in these regards. But if you are from university or school and you want advanced math or computer science topics, just hit me up anywhere or anyone from JetBrains, and we'll be happy to talk about. Including like right now, we are thinking about the internships for the students, and we've been running this program since forever, but mostly in Russia due to the ties with Russian universities. Right now, due to the opening multiple offices and people moving to European countries, we are expanding the program to European universities. So there are a number of different internships that we have before. The first one, it was paid internship that will run throughout the whole summer, and usually it's prepared long in advance to all the first different teams provide tasks that they feel interested and they filter out, and then we have students who are open to work on this project. But before we have this testing, like every single team has different criteria for the student that they will work with. So you can either have a number of questions that you'll ask students to answer, or there will be some task to or some snippet of code to implement. For example, what I've asked my students that I wanted to work with to implement a small GUI application that will basically have an input string that will be showing the results so that they find through the full English dictionary, basically. They filter out. There were some criteria, so the GUI shouldn't freeze or stall. It should be fluent whether or not you're typing on. So there are some like caveats that it won't be like too easy to implement. And then after the code review and figure out if all the requirements were passed, we'll take a number of students to work with.
Besides the internships, Besides internships, do you do any hiring now?
Yes.
I know that you are looking for.
I look for a lot of people actually. Like specifically rider team and rider from Relocation look for a number of people, and mostly a person who's interested to work on version control systems, specifically Perforce. It will be really nice to have one because we have so many things to work on. But the problem is that Perforce is rarely used outside of the game development world. So inside of JetBrains, I'm one of the few people who actually need the support of Perforce. All the other teams kind of we don't actually need it. And if you're interested in extremely hardcore, low-level programming, like developing a C++ debugger, we are looking at these people as well. Different teams are looking as well for employees. For example, WebStorm, the IDE for web development, they're looking for some people, but I don't know specifics of what exactly they are required to. But I know for sure that they've already had some interviews and talking with the local people, but I don't know if it was a success or not.
So does WebStorm also have a team in Cyprus then? Or can somebody work remotely from here?
Currently, I think you can work remotely from any country that has office of JetBrains, including Cyprus. But specifically to WebStorm and Cyprus, there's a number of developers, including the team leader of the WebStorm. He moved to the Cyprus. So it's easier even to get in the team if you are living in Cyprus.
Okay. So then how can people find the open positions, and specifically about the work that you do with school students? How can people apply to these kind of programs?
For the open positions, they are available at the main website, like jetbrains.com. And I think it's usually up to date and you can check for open positions. And if it says remote, you can apply basically from Cyprus. Or regarding the collaboration with different schools, I think it wasn't like no entry point like a site. So you can basically go to the jetbrains.com and see the contacts and email to the email available as a contact, saying that you are from this education like school or university and you're interested in collaboration. But we're not like, at least I don't know about an entry point that you can go on the form that sign in that I am from this school or university, etc., and to like fill out an application and start to work with. I know for sure that JetBrains has contacted a lot of schools and universities and had a lot of rejections, actually. I don't know why. One of the reasons maybe because JetBrains, even though it's extremely like known and popular in the developers world, but outside of it, it's extremely niche and not that many people know about the existence of the company. And sometimes even if developer had been using our products for many years, they don't know they do not associate the JetBrains with actual products that they use. Can use PyCharm, for example, for many years, but they don't know that it was developed by the JetBrains company.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for this information, Alex. They have been very useful. I mean, if someone doesn't know anything about JetBrains, you would have a very good idea up to now of what you do there. We have a giveaway as well for this episode by JetBrains. It's a couple of license that JetBrains was kind enough to provide us. So if you can just log on to our Instagram account and follow the instructions on the post, you can get in the giveaway.
Thank you. That was very enlightening. It was great to speak with you today. I'm sure a lot of our listeners will have questions. So how can they reach you?
That is a good question. I think the easiest way will be to hit me up on Twitter, because the only social network that I regularly check, and I check it more frequent than my email, so I don't want to bother just sharing it. So if you have any questions, don't be embarrassed, and you can directly DM me on the Twitter at the tag PIE_daddy, because there's no easy explanation on why it's been used. Just contact me there, or find me anywhere by Alexander Pirogov, my name and surname, and I'm always open to chat and talk and answer any questions that you have.
That's great. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks, for having me.